All right, everybody have a good lunch. I saw the food was gone, so I'm gonna figure that the food was good, even though they didn't give us the plates and utensils. But we're gonna get ready to go on after lunch. I know we got some side conversations going, and there'll be a little bit of opportunity on the back end too, to kind of get to know one another and talk shop and get to talk to the speakers. One of the things that we're gonna do during before the wrap up, that we're all gonna come up front and do like some Q&A. We're gonna talk through some things if you guys don't have questions, but give you opportunity as you're kind of going through, think through the next couple hour and a half, and just whatever questions you got. Because the thing is, we want you guys to walk out of here with the information you need. So if you got questions, you should be leaving here with questions at the end of the day. You got a lot of high-level investors, as you guys already seen from the presentations. And so if there's something that you need or need to know, by all means, definitely step up and ask. Because a closed mouth don't get fed? And we all family, right? We all family, all right, that's it. So I'm gonna talk about how to find and finance deals for huge profits. So who are sellers? So the thing with the data from 21, we gotta understand that we gotta figure out who it is that's selling these houses at discount. Who are these people in trouble? What is that? So back in 21, 5.41 million homes were sold across the United States. The average homeowner that sold their house was 56 years old. Average household income was $112,000. And guess what? 10% of these people didn't use a realtor to sell their house. So that means about 500,000 houses were sold across the United States without a real estate agent. That's where you and I come in. Because that's where the opportunity to help these people be able to sell these properties without a realtor. And guess what? Realtors are another way that you can get great deals. And we're going to talk a little bit about that too. But the more that you understand your seller, what do they think, what do they like to shop, what do they like to buy, what do they dislike, what's their favorite cartoon. When I walk into the house, I'm an intelligence officer too, so I learned that by trade. But really, you're assessing the situation everywhere, every day, everywhere you go, regardless, you should be. And so when you walk in a homeowner's house, you walk in, the dog meets you at the door. It's like, oh, you pet the dog? Like, I like dogs too. You see the football over there. If it's Auburn, like, yeah, you ain't no get no war ego out of me. But I'm like, okay, cool. I'm from the other side of the state, but I'm here to help. And but you look at the pictures, they might have a loved one that served in the military. Like, oh, I still serve. Because a lot of times, depending on what I'm doing, I would show up to talk to homeowners in uniform. And so it's like you got to know these people, about how to build rapport, have conversations with people. And a lot of times you may know they're in foreclosure, but I'm not going to walk in the door like, hey, I know y'all in foreclosure and all. No, you're not going to start no conversation. You coming in there and be like, hey, yep, I'm glad you were able to take that appointment. Hey, tell me what's going on. What's happening? You're behind on payments. Oh, really? Okay. All right. What happened there? I know that has to be challenging, so have you looked at this? Give them options. Have you thought about this? Have you thought about refinancing? Like, no, my credit's messed up. Like, okay. Have you talked to the bank about renegotiating? Well, yeah, they said no, okay. Have you looked at borrowing money? Yep, I can't borrow money to pay down the mortgage to catch up. Like, okay. We got the solutions there. Like, okay. Have you thought about maybe just letting somebody take over the mortgage? And you walk away, maybe figure out, get a little bit of your equity, and then we just pay the bank back later. We give their money at a later date, and and save your credit at the same time. Like, oh, I never thought about that. We can do that. It's like, yeah, I'm part of the go-getter family. That's what we learn how to do. That's what we do. And so that's the thing, just being able to build those relationships at an intimate level and understand, like Gene said, we helping people. We solve problems. That's what we're doing. We're solving problems. So the more we know about our sellers, the more effective that we can be at helping solve their problems at the end of the day. Marketing. Marketing refers to activities a company undertakes to promote the buying or selling of a product or service. It includes advertising, selling, and delivering products to consumers or other business. You gotta be great at marketing. Marketing is the lifeblood of any business. Coca-Cola, McDonald's, they've been in business a long time. They still advertise. Why? Because they know when you get hungry, that they want to be top of mind, because there's a lot of other places that you can go. And McDonald's don't even sell the best hamburger. But people still go there. They sell billions of hamburgers every year. And that's the thing with marketing, that we got to be great at marketing as well. And that's the thing that we're talking more on the active side with being an active investor, starting a flipping business, actively marketing to find your own deals. But if you're someone that has a high level skill set, you're doing great at your W-2 job, you don't have a lot of time to do a lot of this stuff. But now you need to understand, how do I underwrite a deal? How do I assess a deal when I partner with somebody that has time, that's going to be managing the deals, and I'm investing my money into them, investing my money into this deal? I got to know how to understand, hey, is this deal right? Is the numbers going to work? Is what they're talking about making sense? And so that's where that information is coming in. So understanding as we go through, we talk a lot today about active skill sets to do, but a lot of this you need to know as a passive investor as well too, whereas that you're informed, that you can make competent decisions, and you align yourself with the right people, and then understand like, hey, well, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna fix this house up for $20,000. Like, nah, man, it's gonna cost $50,000 to fix that. There's no way you're gonna get in there and fix it up for $20,000, because then you get into the deal like, oh, we're over budget by $30,000. It's like, well, you were doomed before because you should have known up front that it was gonna cost this amount. And so that's where just the education piece comes in there with that. But marketing, we got to get great at marketing. This is what we do as real estate investors. We solve problems. We buy houses in the as-is conditions. We don't charge any fees. We're not realtors. All my realtors in here, no offense. But a lot of people, for whatever reason, psychologically, they don't like working with realtors. They don't value the service that I'll take that back. They don't value the service that good realtors provide. Because I'll tell you, I had the same mindset too, and limited belief. It was like, I can do a job better. Like, I can negotiate a contract better, just as better as anybody else. I own the property. I can work with them and negotiate the skill set. But the thing that I was losing sight of was my time. The time that I saved by having a really good realtor. You don't have to worry about the showings. You don't have to worry about the back and forth. You don't have to worry about putting the contract together, reviewing the contract. And so if you align yourself, how many realtors we got in the room? Y'all look around these hands, because guess what? If you need some deals in the Birmingham area or whatever area they're in, Jackson, Mississippi, like these are the realtors. Because guess what? They know how you think as an investor. They know how to approach a deal as an investor, what you're looking for. They know what you need in order to be successful when you start talking about deals and what's not a deal. And so that's the thing they were doing. Realtors are, having a good realtor is great, because now you're leveraging their time and experience. That's marketing you don't have to do, because they're bringing you deals. To the point now, like with social media, being able to share and do things like that, it's like now you get more deals just for real. Like, hey, I see you closing deals. Like, hey, this is what I got. This is not even on the market. Hey, look at this. And it's crazy how much deal volume just comes across your desk from just people knowing that you close and you do what you say you're going to do. That opportunities where you don't even have to spend money on marketing, because there's so many different ways that you can market. Whether you got a large budget monthly or you don't have a lot of money at all, there's ways for you to market and get in front of the right eyeballs that's making decisions. We can close fast or slow. I've had houses under contract where we had to close in like less than a week, and I've had some where we closed in like 3 months. I think we've been under contract for this 20 unit that was part of a larger deal going on 4 months. I think it was so part of it was a joint ownership team. A hedge fund owned a small minority portion of the company, and they were pushing back. They didn't want to allow seller financing to happen. And so it was back and forth, and then now we ended up where we're negotiating, where we're going to buy their ownership for like 40, I think it's like 45% of what the equity stake is in the deal. But it takes time to negotiate. So sometimes you close fast, sometimes you close slow, but guess what? Ask the seller what they want to see happen. If they're not in foreclosure, like, hey, it's a probate property, mom's house, we got to get the personal property items out of there. It's like, okay, cool. Just let us know, hey, the timeline, we'll put a 60-day clause, 90 days in there to close, and we'll work with you. Matter of fact, I got a company that'll help you move the stuff out. Look for different ways to add value. When you start talking about probate and personal property and moving the stuff out, find somebody that can help their life become a whole lot easier. With handling the personal property, they may not even have an attorney yet, and going through probate. It's like, oh, I know a probate attorney. And we'll talk about that strategy. But yeah, anybody know what's the number one marketing strategy out there right now? I'm not gonna let you look at the slides and cheat. Anybody? Huh? There isn't one. All of it works. You just got to get in front of the right person. But what I'll tell you is, whatever you choose to do, you got to be consistent. You got to show up and you got to do it. I tell people, pick 2 or 3. Hey, I'm gonna have a website and I'm gonna send direct mail. Cool, but be committed, be consistent. I'm gonna do social media ads. I'm gonna do pay-per-click. Where you go search something on Google, sell my house in Atlanta, Georgia. It's like, okay, my ad's gonna pop up right under that search when somebody search that term. Or I'm gonna have a virtual assistant in the Philippines that's gonna text list of thousands of people every day and ask them, do they want to sell their house? How many people in here get text messages from random numbers saying, hey, I want to buy your house? I'm sorry. No, we haven't been doing it in Birmingham yet. But that's because, like, you think about it, it costs you like a penny to send a text message, and you can reach 1,000 people and understand all you're looking for is one or two. It's like, okay, let's set the appointment. It's a numbers game. You send 1,000 text messages a day, 5 days, out of 5,000 leads, you get 10 appointments, 2 of them turn into deals. It's good. And you see what you can do. You make 30,000 a deal. That's 60,000 you made in just 1 week. If you reach out and touch enough people. And you get enough no's, and and just know when you get a no, you're closer to the next yes. And not get dismayed when you get cursed out, when you get the text message back like, how did you get my number, and why are you texting me, and all this. Like, yep, all right, we're getting closer. Have a blessed day. But no, broad marketing. So these are some strategies that you can use today, right now, to do deals. Number 1 over there, bandit. So broad marketing. So you got tactical marketing, you got broad. Broad is you're reaching everybody. You're just throwing or casting a wide net to try to catch something. When you think about billboards, when you ride down the interstate, everybody that goes down the interstate, thousands of people every day, they see that. That's broad marketing and advertising. They don't know who needs their service. They don't know who's got hit by a car and needs a lawyer, but they put the sign up there. One of the ones you ride all across Alabama, you're going to see Alexander Shannara on the billboard. Across the Gulf Coast, all down through here. But that's, billboards, bandit signs. Great example, bandit sign. I told my coaching clients last year, like, hey, this is a strategy I'm about to do. We'll buy 100 bandit signs. We're going to see how many deals we get. We bought bandit signs like $425 to buy 100 signs in the States, put them out. We got a fire-damaged house. Guy called us, and there's a whole strategy. Put them out on, make first, code enforcement right there. Make sure that your municipality, what's the rules with bandit signs and where you can put them, where you can place them. One of the strategies we do, we'll put them out on a Friday, and then they'll at least be up for 3 days. And then just depending on what the city is and the laws, like you can, and I pay somebody. I found somebody on Craigslist, put them out, and then you can pay people to pick them back up. At Sunday night. Where's that when it's during the week and code enforcement? Because you guys don't work on the weekend, do you? Oh, don't do this in Memphis. But that's the thing. You got to know municipality and the rules, and then you want to be a law-abiding citizen as well. So know the rules and know what you can do for marketing on the weekends, and you don't want to be just stapling them all on the light poles and all that stuff, just crazy. But we got a deal from a bandit sign. Guy called in, had a firehouse, and we bought the house $70K. I paid like $12,000 to gut it, take it down to the studs, do some remediation and all that, and then we put it on the market and we wholetailed it. And we put it on the market. We bought it for $70K, and I think we put it on the market for $100, and we ended up selling like a little bit less than that. And it was just an investor, because I was like, I'm not doing ground up construction and all that with the permitting and all that. Like, no, boom. But I know if I buy it 70 and I clear it out, that the ARV is going to be close to 200. I know somebody will buy it, and I still left enough meat on the bone for them to make money. And that's what it's all about. But you got to know deals and deal structure. But all that deal came from was $400 of spending to buy those 100 bandit signs, to be able to do that transaction. And you buy it, we closed on it, cleaned it out, then we put it back on the market. And that's all in a matter of like 60 days. T-shirts, hats, business cards, flyers, TV, just handing out, people, you never know who you're going to walk by and just see. And it's like, oh, you're investing in real estate. I had a guy yesterday, I was getting on the plane flying back from Fort Myers last night in Atlanta connecting. And the guy's like, man, that's a nice suit you got on. I was like, cool, thank you. And then we just started talking. He's like, oh, you're in real estate. And because he heard I was on the phone having a meeting with our property manager for the apartment in Montgomery, and we just having our Friday meetings, like, hey, catching up on what we're doing to marketing and leasing. And he heard my conversation, and I was like, hey, yeah, we do real estate, and been doing this, and then gave him my business card. And he was like, but you never know who you know, by wearing a T-shirt, by wearing a hat, by handing out business card, networking, talking to people that may be interested in selling your house. Like, man, I just inherited a house, and we don't know what to do with it. The house we're selling right now in D.C., my church that I used to go to when I was there in like 13 to 17, they had a reverse mortgage on the property. They didn't even know that mom had a reverse mortgage on the house. She went to the nursing home, and I learned this with a reverse mortgage, that once the owner leaves the property, whether it's still alive or not, that the clock starts, that they're taking their house, they want their money back with a reverse mortgage. And so they had a limited amount of time they had to move. And the family was talking. He's like, man, I don't know how we're going to sell it. We got to clean it out and stuff. He's like, man, we probably need to talk to a real estate investor. He's like, I know a guy. And I was like, hey, yep. He's like, Zillow says it's worth like $275. I was like, yeah. I'm looking at the comps like 450 to 5, a little bit over 500. And he's like, I tell you what, we ain't got to do no hassle, just close, give me $290 for it. I was like, cool. The market's changing, it's getting winter time. I'm like, but we can do $290. We did $290, cleaned it out, and I was looking. DC regulation, man, y'all know the government, they don't be playing. The permitting takes time, the inspections take time. I work for the government, so I already know what time it is. And I'm like, I don't have a team in place in DC, so I'm like, okay, we're gonna just wholesale it, we're gonna clear it out, and we're gonna put it back on the market. So we put it back on the market for $350, and we got an offer for $360. And so we're gonna be closing beginning of February. But it's like, you gotta have the knowledge and the information, and I didn't even pay for that. I don't even do deals up there in my market, but the relationship, like, hey, I know you're an investor, y'all been posting, you got your business stuff, can you help us? I'm like, yeah, I can help you. You can help people anywhere. But the more you exposure, the more marketing you're doing, broad marketing, just talking about what it is that you do, it just, opportunity is gonna come to you to help you achieve and manifest whatever it is that you want in your dreaming. Because guess what? If you say you can do it, you're right. And if you say you can't do it, you're right. So at the end of the day, broad marketing, pay-per-click, Facebook, Instagram, auctions, driving for dollars, just driving looking for weeds in the yard, old newspapers, leaves, tree limbs on top of the house, letters stuck in the doorway, letters taped to the front door, whether it's foreclosure, code enforcement, or anything that's up there as a sign. You know, mail flooding out the mailbox, or you can see newspaper having mail, or you can see an old car in the driveway and his leaves still underneath it, or on top of it. The car hadn't moved. When you drive at night, no lights on. All those are signs of, hey, this is a vacant property. And so now go pull your tax record, find out who owns this property, send them a certified mail so somebody has to sign for it. You know they got to open and get it. And let them know, hey, I saw this property. Are you thinking about entering or selling? There's some other stuff you can go in there. But it's different ways and that you can contact these people and to get in touch with them. A cool one, like, you know, a lot of people do with apartments is like one guy, because, you know, apartments, your list is a whole lot smaller than single family homes. They send certified mail, they put a Rubik's Cube in there, and it's like, hey, let's figure this out together. And, you know, you stand out from everybody else. Who else is sending a Rubik's Cube to somebody, you know, and saying with a little catchy marketing? But that's marketing and advertising. That's a cool way to separate yourself from everybody else that's coming in. So that's broad marketing. There's ways you can do it. You can write a book, ringless voicemail, text messaging. There's ways you can leverage technology to reach a lot of people faster. Whereas that direct mail has like right now less than a 1% response rate. So you got to send a lot of mails. People that send 10, 20,000 mailers a month or more, a month to read, because it's just a numbers game. You put in so much and eventually you're going to get so many responses. But starting out, you may not have a budget where you can send, you know, 10,000 mail pieces for 30 cents a piece. That's $3,000 a month. You know, so you may not have, or you may not even have the infrastructure to even answer that many phone calls, returns and stuff. So as you grow, you can grow into your marketing, you can scale up, you can leverage text messaging. Right now, my primary marketing source is cold calling and text message blasts. I have a VA in the Philippines that works 40 hours a week for me that does nothing but text message blasts and cold calling. And when they talk to somebody, that's interested in selling, they send a message to my acquisition manager, who's a realtor who works strictly off commission in Panama City, and she calls the homeowner, sets the appointment, goes, walks it, she sends me the pictures, and lets me know what her thoughts about the budget that I've trained her on. Hey, look for these things, this is what it costs, and she knows the market. Like, okay, we'll offer them this, and then she makes the offer, gets it under contract, sends it to the title company, gets my contractors in there to refine the budget, get everything set up, we close, and then the contractors go in and fix it, and she's listed, sells it, and she's my eyes and ears like, yep, they fixed this, they need to go back and redo this before you pay them and X, Y, Z. It's like, okay, cool. And I do that for 14 hours away. But you have to build a system in place to be able to do that. And so having the marketing that leads to all this being said is that a lot of us didn't have to follow you. You can put teams and you can put people in place to make you successful and leverage them, or you can leverage technology. Whereas that now, instead of sending one text message at a time, you can send 1,000 by just pressing one button. And so just knowing the systems out there and being able, what you can leverage to manage people across the world to help you in your business and help you build your portfolio is the way to do it. Tactical marketing. So get sniper with it. We get laser focused with it. This is figuring out one niche. You just pick one of these to focus on and it'll make you rich. Guaranteed. If you get good at just one thing, you look at most millionaires get great at one thing, then they diversify into other businesses, to other opportunities. But once you go in, because guess what? If you know everything that there is to know about foreclosure, if you got all your money in foreclosure, that ain't risky because you got the knowledge, you know it. So a lot of people speak from a risk perspective, like it's risky because you don't have the knowledge to be successful at it. If you know it, you know it. You're not over leveraged. You don't have to diversify when you know what you're doing and what you're talking about. Your risk exposure is not low. But once you get to a point where you're very, very successful, now it's time to start diversifying. But with that, you can target people that's going into pre-foreclosure. We talked a lot about that today. People that's downsizing. You pull you a list of data of people, you look at whatever the data is saying, people the age of 60 to 70 are the perfect year to downsize that make X amount of income that live in these zip codes. Okay, let's pull that list of people. Let's start marketing to them. And the thing with it is, whatever you do, you got to be consistent. Most marketing, you're going to have at least 6, 7 touch points with somebody before they're going to make a decision. Think about when you make a decision. How many times do you just go and do something at a drop of a dime? As soon as you see, like, oh, McDonald's advertising, oh, I'm going to buy a cheeseburger right now. No, you might see it a couple times. It might be next week. You ride home for lunch, like, man, let me go get that cheeseburger. But it's effective advertising over and over again, because I equate it to being like a revolving door. You're throwing your mail. You're sending a letter. Hey, I buy houses. I help people in this situation. I'm looking for tired landlords. They might not be tired right now. So it's like a revolving window. You're throwing your mail. It's not hitting the window. You're not catching the window. You're not catching the window. It's not falling on deaf ears. But month 6, her husband passed away, who was managing the portfolio. Now she just all of a sudden, she's responsible for 12 houses and managing 12 houses and 12 different residents. Now your letter shows up month 7. It goes to the window. It's received. She's like, hold on. This person's serious. They've been mailing us for 7 months straight. They must be they serious. They know what they're doing. They're really in business. Let me call them because I need help now. But what if you had stopped at month 6 or month 3 and said, hey, yep, nah, well, this ain't working. But now you could have missed out on making a relationship with somebody that had a portfolio of 10 houses that owned free and clear, and each house was worth $100,000. And you come in and say, hey, yep, I'm going to give you 10% down, and then we're going to pay you income, because guess what? You're retired. You don't have any income coming in. We're going to give you income and make a payment. We're going to say $500 a house for 10 houses. So now we're going to give you a payment of $5,000 a month for 30 years. Now you solved her problem. She didn't have to worry about income. She's like, oh, I can live off $60,000 a year off that. And you're going to give me a lump sum of 10% down of $100K? Oh, but I don't have $100K. Well, you can call my man over here that has $100K in his self-directed IRA, his retirement account. Y'all partner up 50-50. You got the deal, he's got the money, and you're going to manage it. Now, you just bought $1 million in assets with just your time. We're putting the deal together, and he just got $1 million worth of assets with just putting $50,000 down. And y'all splitting the cash flow, the remaining cash flow. Because if you're renting each one for $800, that's what, $8,000 you're paying her $5,000, so y'all cash flowing $3,000 a month. And you just did that off your mind by going out here marketing and finding the deal off one relationship. And now you got a portfolio of 10 houses just like that. And so that's the thing with it, is like being consistent and just consistently showing up, whether it's, whatever you want to do for the marketing. That's just one scenario of going after tired landlords. If you get great at that, you got code violations, taxes, vacant. All this data is at the courthouse and it's free. They have to give it to you. And if they don't want to, tell them you're going to file a Freedom of Information Act request for you, FOIA, Freedom of Information Act. By law, they have to give you this information. They have to. They have to tell you who's in default. You go there like, hey, I want this data. Who's behind on their taxes? They got to tell you. Who's evicting people from the court system? They got to tell you. So if you just figure out which one you want to go after consistently and show up like, hey, I'm going to the courthouse on my lunch break every 2 weeks. I'm pulling this data. I'm getting this list. I'm going to handwrite these letters. We used to have letter mailing parties. When we were in Panama City, we would get the kids, we fold the letters, we print them all out. We got a real printer, and And then they sit there, they would love to tear off the little thing and close the envelopes. And we would send 300-400, put them in the mail, like, hey, let's go. And I can write them off my taxes for them actually work and get them money they don't have to pay taxes on. So that's another thing, you know, there's so many different strategies with taxes and family and everything, but you really can focus on any of these things. We talked about tired landlords, transition to nursing home, people that's leaving their house and they got to go to a facility. There's a lot of that going on with baby boomers right now. Divorce, retirement, relocation, bankruptcy, pre-foreclosure, death and family, probate, all these, you just figure out one. One strategy right now, think about this, especially with COVID, we didn't leverage it and go into it, but think about if you market yourself, and this is something that I teach my coaching clients, and you know, with the documents and how to go through and market yourself. But think about it, if you have 5 attorneys, just 5 probate attorneys, you approach, let them know, hey, this is what I'm doing. I can help your clients in probate. I have a team that can help them with the personal property. I'm going through this right now with my own parents. My mom passed away last year, and with her property down in Saraland, Alabama. We're going through that. We align with the realtor. We've got to get out the remaining stuff we want, and then they're going to do an estate sale and sell off everything. Then we're going to bring in some contractors, put new floors and paint, and then we're going to sell it. But that whole process is like, how can you add value for the attorney? Because guess what? The attorney gets paid when the estate settles. So now you come in like, hey, I can help your estate. I can help them close out the estate, get everything out the house, get the house. Because usually most people, the house that they own is the biggest asset that they have. And so they have to sell that asset in order to close out the estate. And so now the attorney's motivated because guess what? You're helping him get paid because the sooner and faster he can close it out and get the house sold. And so now you step in like, hey, yep, I can help him with the personal property. I can help them whatever they need to do with coordinating with movers and all that stuff. And we'll take the house as is. They don't have to fix it up or anything. Now think about if you make $30,000 off one house and you got 5 attorneys. If each one of them bring you one house a year, that's 5 houses times $30,000. That's $150,000 you'd have made off relationships, no marketing. Now think about it, those 5 attorneys each bring you 3 deals a year. 15 houses that you'd have made $30,000 per house. It's like, and that's just from relationships, just going out here talking to a couple of attorneys. You can talk to them for free. Some of them may charge you $100 for an hour. Pay $100. Go in with your trifold brochure like, hey, this is what I'm doing, my business, who we helping. And like if you don't even have a lot of experience, like, hey, this is my team. Like I got a realtor on my team, been doing this 20 years. I got my contractors. They got this moving service. They've been doing it 20 years in the community. It's like our team combined together, we got 60 years experience. And it's like, hey, this is what we're doing. You know, so don't limit yourself on how you can go about marketing and putting the strategy together. You can just start helping people that's back on their taxes. Like, hey, we got a service. We can give you a free 30-minute consultation. We help people that's not paid their taxes and just give you some different options. And then if you just convert like 10% of them into deals and you're helping people at the same time. So just think through different ways, what gravitates to you that you feel comfortable with doing and just do it. Show up and keep doing it. How to finance your deals. We talked a little bit about the finance getting pre-approved. You definitely want to have multiple lenders in your background and kind of have at your disposal because things change. Like when COVID kicked off, like a lot of hard money lenders stopped lending. And so you want to have multiple lenders in your back pocket. You want to have multiple banks on the back end. So when you do your investments and you have to refinance, you want to have different banks that you can go to that'll cash you out. Like I love my credit union in Panama City. They have no seasoning period. So you can buy a house, fix it up. If you fix it up in 2 weeks and put a tenant in it, you can start refinancing out your short-term loan in 2 weeks and start that process, and they're going to have you closed in 3 weeks. All they waiting on is the appraisal after about a week. They done. Just waiting on the appraisal to come in and ready to close. And so, but it starts with relationships. And I met that business development guy from that bank at a meetup at lunch at the Mexican restaurant in Panama City on my lunch break. And went to just a meetup that somebody was having. And so, and I didn't start using them until a year later after I got back from a deployment. But I was like, hey, let me call this bank. He was like, oh, yeah, I remember you, man. He was like, I literally 2 weeks ago threw your file away because after we purged files, you know, after a year with your tax returns you sent in and stuff, I was like, yeah, I was deployed. And then I got back, the hurricane happened and all that. And so I was like, yeah, we've been busy. And but now we're about to get busy with real estate. Let's go. And building those relationships. So you want to have multiple lenders in place. Debt. Rich people use debt to leverage investments and grow cash flows. Poor people use debt to buy things that make rich people richer. Facts. Facts. You know, because guess what? When you pay off all your debt, you're still at zero. It's like, okay, Which debt? You want to be at zero, or you want to have $1 million of debt on a $3 million asset that you control? And so that's the thing, just the power of leverage that you can use with debt. One of the client that I was working with a couple months ago, she wanted to put a strategy together because she's like, hey, I want to have a $5 million retirement account. I'm like, okay, cool. What is that? Like, now let's talk about real estate assets. So essentially, with a $5 million portfolio, what they say you can tap into what, 4% a year? It's probably less than that now. People living a lot longer. They probably want you to only take out like 3% of your retirement account a year once you retire, so the money can still be there and last a long time. But we figured that about $250,000 a year would be something if you had a $5 million portfolio, you could pull that money out. After taxes and everything, about $250, where you end up after paying taxes and everything for is discretionary income. So $250 a year, that if you go out and buy a 40, 50 unit apartment building where you put $400,000 or $500,000 down, when you look at it in the cash flow, you're right there close to about $12,000, $13,000 monthly cash flow that you're going to be going in with only putting down less than 10% of that $5 million. You're controlling an asset that produces enough cash that would be the equivalent to having a retirement account with that value, because you only can pull out 3 or 4% a year. And so those are the type of strategies with leverage that, because guess what, the bank doesn't participate on the upside. All that appreciation when it goes up in value, that goes to you. The bank doesn't get that. And guess what? Now you're paying down that mortgage over time with money that's worthless. So now you're buying the property in 2000, but guess what? 2010, 2020, the dollar is worthless. So that money, you're paying down your asset, and your asset's going up in value the whole time. But you're paying it down with money that's worth less and less and building up equity as the asset appreciates. So that's one of the things with leverage that allows you to get in, and you can control a $100,000 house with only $10,000 down, $20,000 down. Now 20%, but you're controlling all the upside and the build and everything, and the bank's right there as your partner. But the thing is, you got to know, hey, make sure I'm not being over leveraged. I got to have my reserves to make sure, hey, if they stop paying for a couple of months, I'm good. So as you go through, there's smart ways to leverage debt, whereas that you can leverage to kind of scale up your portfolio and use it as an asset instead of a liability. Hard money. Talk a little bit about hard money. Hard money is just a non-traditional lender. Their interest rate's a little bit higher, usually 9 to 12%. But they move speed. They don't care that the house needs a roof, that the walls burn down, you know, all that stuff. They're looking at the upside of, okay, once you fix it up, it's going to be worth X. We're going to do a desktop appraisal. And, okay, you got the experience. You've done it before. We trust you. And you got cash reserve because they want you to have a little bit of money in the bank in case something goes wrong. So hard money, they borrow primarily against the asset. All of them are the same. Some can't move as fast as others. There's a lot of like banks out here that say they give hard money, but it takes them 30 days to close. I think now is more, it's okay to close in 30 days. You know, a year ago, if you close in 30 days, there ain't no way you're getting a deal. Because like you got somebody saying they're going to pay cash and they'll close in 3 days as soon as title come back. But now there's not as much activity, so it's not as competitive. So if you go in and say, hey, 30 days, I want to inspect it and all that, that'll work. But a lot of times you want to have a hard money lender that's going to be move speed. They don't have to have appraisals. They don't have to send inspectors out before they give you an approval. The last thing you want is, you know, you got to look at something under contract in day 10 and you only got 14 days. It's like, yeah, we don't think we're going to be able to do this. We just got the appraisal back. We're like, what? No, man, we got to get this closed. And so being able to vet hard money lenders and just ask questions about, hey, their draw process. How do they give out the money after the renovations have been done? Do they have to physically send out an inspector? He has to take pictures. He has to go back, write a report. Then he has to send it to the company. And then you get your money back 4 or 5 days later. Or can you send pictures, text them to him, and like then you get a wire the next day? You know, so that's kind of the difference with the draw process and just how you can help. That allows you to be able to manage your cash flow better. So the hard money is a great tool. I leverage hard money. I leverage private money as well too in our business. But it allows you to get in deals without having to put crazy money down or having to pay cash. And the thing with that with hard money, there's hard money lenders that'll lend money to your IRA. You can buy houses in your retirement account, and there's lenders that specialize in loaning retirement accounts money. So you can buy a house, put 10% down, and then they'll lend the other 90% to your IRA to buy the property in your IRA's name. And you know, there's different strategies like that, whereas that you can build wealth and build it at a fast level. Whereas that you can own rental properties in your IRA. Whether you go and pay 100% and pay it in cash, pay it off, or you can borrow money against your IRA and put 10% down, and all that cash flow from your rental property now, instead of going to you, it goes into your retirement account. And so now you're contributing to your account, but now your retirement, your properties are contributing to your retirement account. And so it's different strategies like that, whereas that you can leverage that. And you can lend money out of your retirement account to other flippers, people that you trust and know that's doing deals. You can put money into their deals from your retirement account. The thing with the retirement account, you can't self-fund your own deals because the law says you can't benefit from your retirement account until you're a certain age. And so that's the thing, you can't self-fund your own deals with your retirement account. You would have to put it into somebody else's deal that's not a family member. And your tax people can kind of talk through what's a qualified transaction, what's not allowed with the retirement accounts. But it's a strategy where is that now you can tell the bank, or you can tell your retirement custodian where you want your money to go, compared to your employer saying, oh, we got option A, B, and C, pick one. And you can't touch your money until you're 59 and a half. It's like, no, I want to self-direct and do what I want to with my money, because this is what I know. I got the knowledge and I feel more comfortable doing this, and you have a lot more control. Private notes, that kind of goes in there with private notes. Usually when you lend money out, you get a private note. A mortgage is nothing but a note with the bank. But this is private notes where you can lend money to real estate investors, other companies, whereas that or anything, whether you lend money to a real estate investor or somebody with another business, or you give a loan out to your nephew who's starting a business or something. Whatever it is, just a private note is a way that you guarantee your money, and it just lays out the structure of the loan and the payment terms. So that's all that is. Self-directed retirement accounts, I kind of talked about that one. But that's a great way to grow your money and be in control, and just going through with tapping into the resources that you have right now. A lot of people don't realize they put all this money away for retirement accounts, but they don't know the power and how they can leverage it today. Because guess what? You can go get a loan against your retirement account and go buy you 10 rental properties right now, and you can benefit from that cash flow today by just taking that loan out against your retirement account and doing that. Or you can just put it into a self-directed IRA and just go buy them, and the IRA owns them, and it just the cash flow goes into the retirement account. You just can't access it until you get the right age. So it's just different strategies if you want to benefit now or you want to benefit later, where you can kind of supercharge that account. Lines of credit, credit cards, we talked a lot about that. Savon did a great job just talking about the different credit card strategies that are for entrepreneurs, that if you own a business, that you can leverage lines of credit. We leveraged lines of credit for our first flip that we did in Alexandria. That was in my personal name, and used it as we kicked off our business to renovate the property. So you can tap into all these different resources where you don't have to come up with the money out of pocket. Banks, you got all kind of banks, credit unions and community banks. They have a lot more lenient risk, and they love to, most of the time they do loans within a local area, an hour or two, but they're a great asset to have on your team, because they literally go in, especially when you start talking about having an LLC and doing a commercial loan or investment loan, they make decisions by boards. You go in, the business development guy with the relationship for my apartment building, it was way easier than any single family house I ever bought for me to live in as a personal resident at all. They go in, I gave him my underwriting, I gave him my business plan, I gave him the business plan for the property, and he's like, okay. He's like, man, you made my job easy. He's like, we're gonna tweak this number here, and we use this ratio and this percentage, and that was it. And he's like, I took it to the board, I told him, you got loans with us already, I like the deal, it cash flows and everything from day one, you got the experience. He's like, I gave him the thumbs up, and they literally vote yay, nay, on the board of directors, like, hey, are we gonna do this loan? Because they keep all their loans in-house. And they said, yep, and it was good. It's like, hey, whenever the appraisal come back, we can close. And it was just like that. I'm like, man, that's the easiest $1 million apartment building. It was mind-boggling, because, you have to fight hand and foot to try to get through, just get a house, a $200,000 loan. I didn't have to send no bank statements. I didn't have to do any of that stuff. They did a credit pull, and that was it. They ain't ask. I've had lenders all kind of crazy stuff where they ask you questions. Boy, we looking at your rental property that you got right here. This one here, you send a lease with Section 8. Is this a family member? I'm like, what do you mean? Is this a family member that's living in this house? I'm like, what? Man, Wells Fargo, I'm telling you, man, that class action lawsuit, that stuff was real. I'm telling you, I've literally, yeah. It's crazy what they have to go through. Whereas that it's like you looking at you looking at the income and everything that's coming in. It's like it's no way that you should deny this loan. And then 15 days later, you close with another bank. They're like, yeah, I don't know what they were looking at and why they couldn't do this loan. He's like, we'll get you closed in 15 days. You got all your documents, bank statements, everything right here. Credit scores on point. He's like, yeah, we'll close in 2 weeks. But literally to the point where it's like, luckily we had the lender was like, hey, yeah, we'll give you another extension, but I could have lost the deal because of them. And it was just crazy. And like, they don't care. They're like, yeah, they send you some random email. And then the mortgage specialist like, I don't know, man. He's like, I'm embarrassed. He's like, I don't even know what to tell you. He's like, but the underwriter said no. So like day 4, I'm like, all right, cool. But guess what? Where there's a will, there's a way. That I'm gonna tell you, you're gonna run into challenges with funding, with contractors, with getting the deals and all that, but you gotta overcome and know it's like, hey, we're gonna get it done or we're gonna get it done. And that's the thing, and just be willing to go through, because stuff is gonna happen last minute. And guess what, as you go further and further, the problem's gonna go with you that's gonna match the level that you're investing at. But you gotta know that, hey, it wouldn't be coming at you if you weren't built from the cloth that can solve these problems. And that's where your network comes in, the people in this room, the people in your circle, whereas that you're not trying to figure this out by yourself, because ain't nobody else in your family a real estate investor or entrepreneur. You can't really go and explain and ask them the questions. It's like, okay, we got to figure this out. But when you got a room full of real estate investors you're talking to on a weekly basis, you got your accountability groups, you're like, hey, I got X, Y, and Z happen. You're like, well, I had that happen 2 months ago, man. This is how I held it. Hey, call this dude. He refinanced me last week on my property. Like, really? He's like, yeah. He's like, I think you can be able to do it. And so just being able to do that and have the right network, that it'll change your life. Seller financing, we talked a little bit about that with Gene already, about being able to come in the bank. I won't hit that one any harder. Syndication, speaking of that 80-unit deal, I forgot that I did have the projects here on the back end. So syndication with this one, wasn't a real syndication because we ended up being, it was me and 2 other guys that I brought in. But I still got the private placement memorandum. I still had the subscription agreement laid out for the deal. But we were able to purchase this one with, we didn't have seller financing, but what I ended up doing was we purchased the property for $1,050,000. We had to put 20% down, had a 4% interest rate, 5-year term. The interest rate resets every 5 years, and it's a 15-year term. And so what I ended up doing, I didn't want to put all the money into the deal because I still had my flipping business, but I ended up raising $95,000 of the $210,000 that need to go into the down payment. And one of the guys, he brought in $75,000, and I gave him 18% ownership. And then another guy, a college buddy of mine, that he put in $20K, and I gave him 5% ownership of the apartment building. Then I ended up with 77% ownership. And with that, we only had to put $70,000 into it. This was a property that had been damaged from the hurricane. The owners were going back and forth. The insurance company, the contractor ran off with some money, and it still had like 4 units that need to be remodeled. And then there was additional 4 units that didn't get damaged in the hurricane, but they were legacy units and they need to be updated eventually. And they still need to be updated because guess what? The people living in there were fine and they hadn't moved out yet, so we hadn't had to turn those units over. And they're still making, I think we got one, Ms. Rose, who's in Section 8, $775. One person's paying $925 because after the hurricane was crazy and she had moved out. And so rent was like you couldn't find any units after the storm. And so when we had bought it, she was already paying $925, and so she's still been paying that. And all the new units online are $925, with the exception of the one across the street, that duplex that we charge $950 a month for those units since they're a little bit bigger. But we refinanced this property June of this year, 2 years later, for $1.76 million. We bought it for $1,050,000 June 2020. Then June of this year, it appraised for $1.76 million. We paid off our investors, so they got that $95,000 back, and they got $20,000 that they split amongst themselves. And oh, by the way, over the 2-year period, they were getting a 7% return on their money. So it ended up getting a 34% return over their money over those 2 years, which isn't bad for them. And now the payment went up from $4,400 to $5,900 a month, and I think we're bringing in right now like $15,500 a month for the rental income for the units. But this deal here, the bank, the same credit union, they allowed me to have a second position. I was like, hey, I don't want to put all this money down. He was like, hey, as long as you put 5% down, comes out your pocket, I don't care where you get the other 15% from. I was like, okay, cool. And so I was like, I found a couple of people who wanted to get a better return on their money than what they would get in the stock market. And it's like, hey, let's do it. And so that's the power of doing this and having those banks that are a partner on the deal. Operation Magic City. So this is the one we partnered up with Reggie on this one here, the beginning of last year. You saw the pictures earlier. But going through that, this was a hard money deal. We brought the money into the deal with a hard money partner. And it was a big renovation. And so you can see how to go through with the cost. You have the after repair value. Our purchase price, $60,000. Put almost $80,000 when you go into all of it. Holding costs. These lenders, they get paid. They're not doing you a favor when they give you a loan on a mortgage. They get 2 or 3 points at closing that they're going to want. And then you got to make interest payments while you're holding as well, too. And so you got to factor that into the analysis. And then you sell it. And, you know, less than 90 days, make $42,000 is not too bad at all in that short amount of time frame. Operation referral. So that lead came from a wholesaler, realtor couple that came through. And they had to close fast. And I was like, okay, man, how did you find this deal? I'm like, you just started looking at real estate and stuff. And I'm like, hey, I think it's a good deal. It's in Pinson. I already knew. I'm like, okay, Pinson. We flipped in Pinson before. I'm like, okay, cool. He's got a great school district. And it was like 10 days. I was like, all right, well, I got a lender that they can get it done in 10 days. And so that was an awesome one. Operation referral. So this one I talk about in my book. And just my limiting belief, whereas that I thought money was always the #1 driver motivation. And this one taught me different. This one came from a probate property we had under contract that by the way, I had got from a bandit sign. It was a crappy bandit sign. It was like the little bitty ones that's like this tall and like this wide. I was like, man, I done saved $100 and bought these little bitty signs can't nobody read. But this one lady, they read the sign. And they called, and they had lost their mom, well, not lost their mom, they were in probate, and she had lost her mom, and they were ready to sell. And we went in, met with her and her husband, and we had the house under contract. But in the meantime, while we were waiting to close probate, she referred me to somebody else, like, hey, he's buying a house, I love them, they're a great couple, and they got the cutest little kids. And she's like, we got to relocate, do you know anybody? And I was like, okay, cool. And this time, you know, it was after the hurricane. I was living like an hour away from my job. We were displaced for 6 months. We were hopping Airbnb. Luckily, the Air Force paid for all that stuff. But we were hopping Airbnb to Airbnb, moving around with a newborn who was born like 5 days after the hurricane hit, and 2 other kids. And I can remember sitting in the living room at the Airbnb, and my wife was like, what are you going to do? It was like, I told those people. I walked in the house, y'all. The house was like, had hardwood floors, didn't need paint or nothing. The bathrooms were aged. They had old wallpaper in the bathroom. That was it. And I'm like, that's the outside. They had a pool in the back, and they had siding that was missing on the side right there. And outside of that, that was it. And it was a brick home, 2-story. And I was like, man, I told her, I'm like, just put your house on the market. I'm like, it'll sell 30 days, 60 days or whatever. It may take a little while. But I'm like, you got a $400,000 house. I'm like, I buy like 70%. I came, she's like, well, take a look still, follow up with me. I'm like, man, I ain't wasting my time. Like, these people ain't about to take no, you know, 280, 300 for their house. Limited belief. I ain't even called in no more comps and nothing. She called me like 3 days later. She's like, I literally told my wife that probably 10 minutes earlier, and the phone started ringing. I was like, it's the lady calling me. She's like, well, answer the phone. And I was like, yep. I was like, I looked at it. I think we're going to probably be somewhere around the 300, 310 range. And she's like, okay. She's like, go ahead, firm it up, and let me know in the next couple of days because we're ready to make a decision. And so, and they owe like $280,000 on it. And so I was like, okay, cool. And so I called her back. I was like, we can do 305. And she said, deal. Because guess what? We need to sell it. And then a week later, we need to close on our house when we move because my husband's starting a job in 2 weeks. He's going out there first. And then the lender is saying we got to have this house sold before we can buy the other one. And so money wasn't the most important thing. They had retirement. She was retired military. And they were like, hey, we got to get out of here fast. So they weren't trying to wait for a realtor to sell. It take 60, 90 days because they didn't have 60, 90 days. We bought this house for $305,000. Rehab cost was less than $3,000. We fixed that siding. And just we couldn't find the siding match, so guess what? You put new siding up, then you just paint all of it the same color. And I put this on the market on Facebook on a Saturday night That Sunday morning, I was just playing with Facebook ads. I'm like, I'm gonna put it out there. I had a realtor hit me up, text me that morning, wanted to see it. And he said, I got a client, a pharmacist in town that's looking for a bigger house. And I was like, okay, cool. So we went on a contract, $400,000. I literally, 3 weeks before that, had bought this house for $305,000. We put less than $5,000 in it, and 60 days later, we sold it for $385,000. And me with my limiting belief almost stopped this deal from happening, me thinking that, hey, these people want X amount of money, because that's what I would have wanted to sell my house for, but that wasn't what they wanted. They needed time and speed. And that's one of the things with it. We ended up negotiating $15,000 off because in the backyard, the fence was torn down. I hadn't fixed the fence. And the range right there it didn't meet code. The microwave was too close to the bottom of the stove. It wasn't enough space. And so they called out that on the inspection report. And of course, like I already told you, like the bathrooms, they had wallpaper. So they were like, hey, I'm like, well, I'm not making repairs. I'll take $15,000 off, we'll call even. And they'd be like, okay, cool. Because like the price of wood was crazy then. So it was gonna cost about $8,000-9,000 to fix the fence and do all that stuff. But that's how you can make deals happen. And we leveraged hard money and we got it closed in a little bit amount of time and got the deal done. And all that came from a referral, which that referral came from somebody who found me on the bandit side. So it's just like, just be consistent and do 1 or 2 things and you're gonna do. Operation Billboard was seller finance and the duplex. We still own that one. ARV was $185,000. We bought that for $55,000. We put about $65K in it. Leveraged my hard money, guys. $800. Wasn't that with the closing with a seller financing? Like you're just paying a couple taxes and that's it. There is no points for the lender and all that kind of stuff that's happened. And we charged $900 a door. And this was a great one because my contractor lives there. In both units, the team that we've been using it'll be 4 years in this spring, working together in Panama City. And so they live there, and we renovated this property, which was crazy. We tore a complete roof out where you could walk in and see outside. And that was my first one I ever done that. And it was like, I think we can do this, but I'm scared. Tyrone's gonna tell you so all this stuff, because I didn't have Tyrone. When I did that, I ain't have Tyrone or anybody, and I hadn't had that experience yet. So I was scared because I ain't had nobody to go through, but I'm like, okay, we got to put some plywood down. We got to put the shingles on. I think it's going to cost about this. I know we hung over 100 sheets of sheetrock for this project. And but guess what? I looked at my statement of work. I was talking with the guys. I'm like, man, hold on. On Facebook, this guy here said he charged, he can hang a sheet, and we're going to be paying like around $10 for them, or $10 a sheet. Then we're going to go through, we're going to prep it and paint it. I'm like, why am I paying you $20? He's like, but that's how you negotiate. You get multiple estimates. You understand what's the market cost of doing the same level of work, and be like, okay, we're comparing apples to apples. And that's why you have to have the details in the statement of work where you can compare. Because a lot of people are like, hey, I do it for $40,000. All right, but how much is it for this part, for the roof, for the insulation, for the paint, for the prep, and all that? And so, okay, now you start like, hold on, you charged me 3 times what the market rate is for this. And so now you can make those decisions and go through, and it's super cool. And Yep, that's it. And that's the thing now, with being able to have somebody like Tyrone, where you have somebody that's, he's going to talk through the whole process, but now you can call somebody to look over your statement of work and like, hey, does this look right? Like, no, tell them to go back and fix the X, Y, and Z. And this one here, Reggie, I should get Reggie to come up and talk about this, but this fake wholesale, this dude was trying to wholesale this apartment deal that with the 96 units, we started with 40. Started with 40 units. The fake wholesaler was shopping around a deal he didn't own, more due diligence, and come to find out he didn't have it under contract. And we were like, hey, well, let's talk to the owner and see if he want to sell, since we got all the info on the units. And lo and behold, a realtor that we've been partnering with in Birmingham reached out to him, hunted him down, and was like, hey, yeah, he interested. Went down, talked to one of the partners that owned a property management company for like 2 hours, chit-chatting. That was a whole story. That guy's a trip. We almost went with them as the property management company for it. It's like, that didn't work out, thankfully. But ARV is going to be around $2.7 million. We bought it for $1.925 million. That's a whole crazy story. So I'll tell you real quick. Rehab costs, we got $280 with a hard money lender. We did a 2-year bridge loan for this, which included $280,000 for renovation. Closing cost was about $47,000. And at the end of the day, you're going to have about about 600,000 in equity for this piece here after a couple years. But it was crazy. So like we had negotiated $200,000 of seller financing on this deal, and like a week out, like we're going back and forth. If the closing attorney told the seller that we weren't gonna do it anymore, that it wasn't necessary. So guess what? We had to come up with a $200,000 in like a week.
Two days.
Yeah.
Like 2 days.
Yeah, and plus the weekend. And so I was like, okay, you got me. Like we went back, meeting with the seller, like, well, technically they're saying that, because the thing with it, the lender didn't want to close that second position loan on the HUD statement when they're closing the bank loan, and what it all came down to at the end of the day. And then they were like, hey, whatever you do, if you want to close it the next day after, you can do it, that's fine, but we can't close it on the same HUD transaction. And the attorney took that as, we're not doing the 200, they're not gonna do the 200K at all. And so after that, they were like, well, our agreement's void now, and we don't need it anymore, and we're not gonna do it. It was like because they went and talked to all their partners, they had like 8, 9 people in the deal, and they told everybody, hey, this is what you're gonna get, we're not doing a seller financing for 2 years. And we went back and forth, talked. And I was like, okay, cool, well, we got to raise it. And it was funny, after the closing, one of the partners wired us $50,000. He was like, hey, we're not going to do the 200, but we want to end on good terms. We send you 50. He sent us $50,000 after the deal. Didn't have to at all, nothing on the records or anything, wired us $50,000, which was, we started talking about relationship and I know Reggie still talked to him, and they talking about going deer hunting and all that kind of stuff. But that's the thing is like, okay, they wanted to make the deal work. And this is an asset that was built 92, 93. It's like 200 units, $250 under market, and it's like on one of the good side towns in Montgomery, over on the east side, close to Gunner Air Force Base. And so it's like assets like that and the cash flow that's gonna be coming monthly, and the opportunities that I'm telling y'all, you're just one deal away from just a Facebook group talking to a wholesaler that don't even have a deal under contract, to reaching out to the owner and them actually wanting to play ball, and then having somebody in your network that can sign on the loan, put the loan together, and bring a team together to purchase the property. And then next thing you know, you done bought 40 units, and then next door, they share the same property management company, the owner next door. He's like, hey, y'all heard y'all buying that, I want to sell too. And then you pick up another 56 units that he owned. He had a 12 unit, a 24 unit, and a 20 unit. And so we closed on the 24 and the 12, and now we are closing a couple of weeks on the 20 unit. And guess what? The 12, we said, like, well, because it's in the low income tax credit program, and we're talking about fully brick apartments that was built in 97, 98. And low income tax credit programs, like, well, they're in it 5 more years. I'm like, well, there's nothing we can do, we can't raise rents. And so, but we'll take the 12 unit that you got that was built in 86. And he's like, okay, if you give me $55,000 a door for the 12 unit, I'll 100% owner finance the other 2 buildings, the 24 unit and the 20 unit. And we were able to put the deal together. And yeah, no down payment on those. And for the 12 unit, we brought in a hard money lender with an 18-month loan. And so that's the power, the strategy, all from one wholesaler shopping a deal they didn't own in a Facebook group to picking up 96 units with a team of like 5 people. And I think we probably ended up putting together about 600,000 total. I said at the beginning of the year, 2022, I'm like, hey, I want to pick up 2 multifamily. I had no clue on what I was going to do and how it was going to happen, but I knew it was going to happen. That refinance that I was telling y'all about on that apartment, I was trying to do that January 22. It didn't happen until June of 22. And so when all that went down, it happened. And guess what? 45 days later, we under contract for this deal. And guess what? I'm like, oh, well, we good. I got you. We good. I can sign on it. I'm going to bankroll and everything. And then we ended up bringing in a few more partners after they walked away. We had to put another 150 in and do all that. But bringing in other people into the deals like that. And so this is no different, the structure of what y'all can do, and just show y'all the power of real estate and leverage and teaming and having the right people around you in circle where you can do things like this and you can move with speed. Come on, Tyrone. I feel like I've been talking all day. Has this been valuable so far to y'all? Y'all getting some good stuff? Okay. Because that's the thing, like, I don't like to be formal, and I want people to be able to meet you where you are right now, because everybody in here is going to have a totally different strategy than everybody, because everybody's a little bit different, but it's just like a track meet. Everybody, when you're doing a relay race, everybody starts on a different point of the track. So you're running, you may be running by somebody, but you don't know where they started at. You don't know where I started at. Nobody knows where you started at. But you got to figure out, hey, I got this amount of time, I got this amount of money, what can I do? Because you can do something. You can put a bandit sign out there on the side of the road and somebody call you and say, hey, we got our probate house, we need to sell it. Or we need to move, leave town. I saw your Facebook page, I see your ads that you got, your direct mail that you sent me, your letter you sent me. You knocked on my door because you saw XYZ. You called me because you found my vacant house. You got the phone number from the nosy neighbor across the street that know everybody's business. I'm saying that's how you get information. It's like, hey, where the owner at? Oh, yeah, I talk to him. I keep the grass cut. And I kind of go through. I check the mail and send it to him. This is the address. This is the phone number. I'm serious. It's just like, just don't take no for an answer with whatever. Don't take no from yourself either or from nobody else because you can do it. Come on, Tyrone. Now, so Tyrone, I got to tell you how we met mastermind event last year. It's like the team here and everybody, we've all met within the last year. I started seeking. I was like, hey, because I taught all this stuff, not bragging or anything. I learned this stuff myself. I've been really good at academics and smart and everything, and I didn't have people in my family that taught me this or real estate investors in my family. I found some real estate investors in my family after the fact. Like, oh, man, you're doing good. He's like, yeah, I made my first $1 in 30. I'm like, what? What you mean you made your first $1 million and ain't told nobody? I'm like, we get together, have a family reunion every 2 years, ain't told nobody nothing. Ain't gave nobody no stock tips. Ain't nobody gave nobody no real estate tips, nothing. I'm like, I had to struggle and go through all this and lessons learned and bumps and bruises to get here. And then I'm like, okay, cool. But that's how people move. But I tell you that because it's doable. And I went about it that way, but I'll tell you, all my wealth is accelerated. The last 2 years, exponentially. Being in the right rooms, meeting people. I didn't know Reggie, I didn't know Gene, I didn't know Tyrone, I didn't know Savon, I didn't know any of these guys a year and a half ago. And look what we've been able to do and put together, and iron sharpens iron. And it's like when you recognize real and you understand character and you know the right people. But I didn't know about mastermind. Like, if I can hire a coach that can teach me how to build a coaching program, how to go through, how to teach people what I've learned and built up over the years to do it, that's how I met Gene. Then I was in the room, okay, how do I go about putting in the way to talk with people? How do I get marketing and all that stuff? That's how I met Tyrone. And then next thing you know, we're talking. He's like, yeah, man, I do real estate, but I'm trying to put my program together and everything. Then he has his event in April. He's like, man, come down to April, man, and talk to my people, man. He's like, I want you to talk to about some of these marketing strategies, some of the stuff that you're doing. Because he's connected. He's like, man, he don't even have to market. That's his problem. He's like, I don't even have to market for my deal. He do all these deals word of mouth because they know him. And that's the thing with it that's beautiful about it is like everybody has different pieces and so many different ways to get there. You just got to figure out what your way is, what you're going to do, and just do it. Take action. And don't take no for an answer. But Tyrone been a great brother. Met him and, came down to Jackson and, gave me my first speaking opportunity on the stage. And was like, now look at this. This all happened within 35 days. I'm like, man, I'm going to Birmingham. Let's do an event. And I was like, okay, we'll put it together and make it happen. And we're here today.